In my previous video reviewing Rise, I got to focus on the entirety of the package delivered to us, things like graphics, storyline, gameplay, monster roster, etc. But a lot of those felt incomplete. In fact, a big criticism I had for this entry overall was a seeming lack of content and difficulty in comparison to the previous entries in the series. With major title updates like 2.0 and 3.0, these criticisms have changed either slightly or majorly depending on their category, and I want to take a look at what has been added or changed in Rise and discuss how it has improved on this entry within the series. I'm not going to retread over topics like the graphics of the games or general gameplay that hasn't changed, but with the addition of the extra storyline and extra monsters to the roster, I think there's plenty that has been added that heavily complements the overall entity that is Monster Hunter Rise. This video is meant to complement my original review of the game, so if you haven't watched that, I highly suggest you do so now. You can find the link in the description and above. I'll mostly be focusing on some key points from the previous video and seeing how they changed throughout the updates. You'll be surprised how much Capcom added that was word for word what I asked for. As always, before we get started, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps me out and is an easy and free way to support the channel. Anyway, I'm Super Rad, and this is the Monster Hunter Rise Review Update 2.0 plus 3.0. Whoa, stop right there and ask yourself a couple questions. Have I played Raid today? Have I joined Rad's clan? Have I ascended the large Tower of Doom, appropriately named Doom Tower? Yes? No? Well, there's no better time than now in Raid Shadow Legends. Believe it or not, I actually try a lot of the games I advertise on here, and Raid isn't an exception to this. Today, I'm going to quickly go over my top 5 favorite game modes. Number 1 has to be the campaign, which offers different star rank levels based on how many champions you bring and whether or not any of them get knocked out in battle. Number 2 is dungeons, specifically the potion dungeons. The reward you get from these can be used to ascend your champions and make them even stronger without leveling or ranking them up. Number 3 is the clan boss. If you join my clan, you can help contribute to taking down the huge health pools of insanely strong bosses over time. Number 4 is faction wars. Each champion you summon is part of a specific faction. Collect enough of a specific faction to use them in faction wars and unlock greater rewards. Finally, number 5 is a personal favorite of mine, the arena, where you can set up defenders for other players to fight and gain rewards whenever you win. My favorite part of the game is creating unique teams that I can use to run through the majority of the content. Right now, I mostly use a team consisting of my epic champion, Grizzled Jarl. Very grizzly. This month, there's a boatload of new champions getting released, meaning there will be even more ways of customizing your team. Maybe I can finally hit level 40 so I can start running the Doom Tower. It's just sitting there, mocking me. If you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you have to do is hit the link in the description or scan my QR code. And you'll get an epic hero, Chinoru, who is amazing in Doom Tower. 200k silver, 1 EXP boost, 1 energy refill, and an ancient shard, so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get into game. All of your new rewards can be found here for the next 30 days and only for new players, so it's a great way to get a head start. Once you're in, you can find me in-game under the name Super Rad Lemon, and you can even join our community's clan. It's seriously that easy. Just click the link in the description and I will see you in-game. Let me start off by saying that it seems like a lot of my major criticisms for the game were already in Capcom's mind as of releasing the previous video, because almost every major complaint I had has been remedied in some way, and a lot of the additions I would have liked to see even made their way in. Take Apex Monsters for example. I'm still of the opinion that Rampages are a fairly poor game mode that end up being more of a mess than anything else, and the biggest L Rise took was locking Apex Monsters behind them. Almost immediately within the announcement of 2.0 and its subsequent release, we already had multiple Apex Monsters taken out of Rampages and given their own quests in Rise's traditional maps. Apex Arzuros, Rathian, and Mitsutsume all were huntable outside of Rampages with a few caveats, and Apex Rathalos and Diablos were added to their own Rampages. What do I mean by caveats? Specifically, it feels like Capcom simply ripped Apexes from Rampages and just placed them on a normal map with no real thought about any additions, and mechanically, it seems they had to lock a few things away. For one, while it makes sense not to be able to capture monsters in a Rampage, outside of that, you'd think you'd be able to capture Apexes or at least have them trigger traps, but this is not the case. You could chalk this up to potential lore reasons, with Apexes being extremely powerful powerful, but even deviants, which Apexes are heavily based off of, had the ability to be capturable to some degree. And it's not just that. Do you want to wyvern ride an Apex monster just like every other monster in the game? Sorry gamer, but you're not allowed. Since wyvern riding an Apex and rampages wouldn't make any sense, you can't do it in a normal map even though the situation is completely different here. It's not like the mechanic isn't there though. You can tell the dev team simply semi-disabled it. You can actually activate the wyvern ride animation by using enough Silkbind attacks, but the actual status won't activate, meaning you can't ride the monster. These are minor criticisms for an overall appreciated addition to the game. I really wanted to be able to fight Apexes outside of rampages, and I got to with only minimal issues. It could have been implemented with a few more features instead of just plopping them onto the map, but the fact that they are there at all really adds to the overall Rise experience. They even have their enhanced roars, which I believe can't be blocked by any earplugs and only blocked by super armor attacks, which is a bit of a missed opportunity there, since they could have added an extra level of earplugs and had Apex roars act mechanically like Zenith roars or similar mechanics seen in Monster Hunter Frontier. They've already been pulling features from Frontier for years, what's one more, and one that would benefit players that want to build sets that bypass Apex mechanics. With the release of 3.0, all Apex monsters now had both rampages and traditional hunts, meaning we got everything from Apex Arzuros to the brand new Apex Zinogre, and this really helped flesh out the quest roster. Overall, the addition of Apexes outside rampages was a huge plus for me and was incredibly appreciated and satisfactory, especially since we got to observe these monsters more. A lot of them, especially additions like Apex Zinogre, are both agile and incredibly powerful, which means that they are designed to keep up with the hunter's mobility via mechanics like the wire bug, and that helps them shine alongside additions like Magnum Hollow. Other additions to the monster roster have been beneficial as well, with invading monsters like Bazelgeuse returning and elder dragons like Chameleos, Kushala, and Teostra. There's plenty of new additions in 2.0 alone. While there's still the issue with invasive species not being particularly invasive and being more of a benefit to the hunter than anything, getting monsters with interesting mechanics like Basil's blast shells and even monsters like Chameleos are of a huge benefit to Rise. Chameleos has even been updated to steal Spirit Bird effects from the hunter, which is similar to its past mechanics where it would straight up steal your items from your inventory. It also has one of the best long swords in the game that turns invisible as you use it. It's sick. 3.0 even brought over Valstrax, an elder dragon only ever seen in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, meaning this is its first next-gen experience. However, it's specifically a variant, Crimson Glow, and while it's an engaging fight, it seems to overall have been slowed down in comparison to its traditional counterpart seen in GU, leading to it suffering slightly from the same issues as other monsters in Rise. Although some people have been telling me that they find the fight more difficult due to the lower speed, so take that as you will. New monsters means new equipment, and while we still haven't got any Apex monster sets, there's plenty of new weapons and armor with unique effects. Valstrax and all Elder Dragons also bring interesting armor skills that may not benefit you within every situation, in effect not really being the meta option, but are still very interesting and fun to utilize. The 2.0 Elder Dragon set's mechanic work as a form of rock, paper, scissors to make you more effective against one of the other Elder Dragons, and the Valstrax set keeps its gimmick from Generations Ultimate, allowing the hunter to become more powerful when struck with Dragon Blight, and allowing it to be automatically applied after a certain HP percentage is met. The Valstrax weapons even have the same cool gimmick of having a huge amount of white sharpness and then strictly red sharpness. It's just a really fun set and my personal favorite layered set currently. And if you don't like the Chameleos longsword, which is one of the best longswords in the game currently, there's actually a good few other options out there for you. You still rarely see elemental builds being used in the meta over raw damage, but there are other raw options out there for you, such as 2.0 introducing Tigrine Edge with Silkbind boost, which can make your Silkbind attacks even more powerful. And when you complete the endgame content featuring the new boss, the Narwa and Ibushi sets get upgrades to offer you even more armor skills, making them a much more interesting combination of pieces for people looking to mess around with new skill builds. Quests are also more rewarding, albeit slightly. There still aren't things like Rainbow Pigment, which is the staple of the series in my opinion, but there's many other rewarding aspects to the game, especially for people that want to utilize every weapon the series offers. For example, with 2.0, completing every arena quest with every weapon would unlock a special headpiece that, when equipped, offers an extra carve per monster, meaning you can carve tails twice and carve monsters 4 to 5 times. That's actually a huge reward when grinding for parts. On top of that, 3.0 added a brand new arena called Infernal Springs that can only be seen by making your way through the majority of, if not all of, the high rank quests, including advanced quests which have been added, making monsters slightly more powerful and pitting you against large groups of them, usually in sets of 2 or 3. There's even a triple Apex quest in Infernal Springs I've run a few times, and while it's not the most difficult fight in the series, it's definitely a challenge and one I really appreciated. And to complement this, Hunter rank has been unlocked, meaning one of the main grind factors in Monster Hunter is backed. While it was never my favorite thing to grind since it's merely a tool to force you into repeating quests, none of the gated content has been particularly egregious. Aside from Valstrax, who required you to be HR 100, which was a large jump in comparison to the Elder Dragons in 2.0. Hell, even the final 3.0 boss fight only needed you to be HR 60, I believe, meaning you have to grind an additional 40 HR if you haven't been actively playing in between updates, and that can take a while depending on what you're running. Speaking of the endgame boss, 3.0 leads off with the new All-Mother Narwa fight. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see Amatsu show up, as I feel it would have fit very well within the setting of Rise, but it really was wishful thinking on my part since it wouldn't make sense to make Amatsu an endgame boss for a second time in a portable entry. That being said, the All-Mother fight is an amazing inclusion and really just builds off of the already fantastic siege fight that the normal Narwa provided us. Honestly, I found myself on the edge of my seat fighting her, watching Magnamalo come down to help briefly, and even seeing other Elder Dragons come down to fight in additional hunts once I had completed it. And having All-Mother make use of the environment she destroyed using Dragonators against Hunters really gave off this Atal Ka vibe and fit very well in the direction the Portable team has taken the series from GU onward. This fight also finished the main storyline and helped Rise feel more complete overall with a steady beginning, middle, and end. It's not for Ultimate or World levels of storyline, but it's definitely some of the best we've seen in the series so far. Touching on the endgame, it can be hard to tell what you specifically want from it in a Monster Hunter entry. Some people want to build the best sets, some people want to get the fastest clear times on the hardest content, and some people just want to clear everything there is to offer. I think people mostly just want a level of replayability that lets them get the most hours out of the experience without getting burnt out, essentially looking to play the game forever until the next entry is released. This makes it tough to pinpoint what makes Rise's endgame good or bad. I don't think that the majority of games out there are designed to be played for 100 plus hours, let alone the multiple hundreds of hours I see some people putting in online. I think the best thing you can ask yourself is if you got the intended amount of content and replayability out of the time you put into it. With Rise now on update 3.0, I'm happy to say it no longer feels like it's missing anything core to its full experience. You have a story that goes from beginning to end, and past that you have the grind for HR in order to unlock new content like the Elder Dragons, but more importantly advanced quests, which are my personal favorite quests to grind at the end of the game due to their challenge. I feel like the endgame could have been bolstered slightly by allowing hunters to gain talismans via gathering and quests like in previous entries, rather than sectioning them off completely to the melding pot, but that's honestly a small fish in an otherwise fairly large pond full of content. I am pleasantly surprised with the amount I found myself grinding Rise after the core progression was done in 2.0 and 3.0 in comparison to the base release. And with event quests coming out regularly and collabs on the way, there's just a ton of base game content being added over time, similarly to how we used to see it done in the old school releases. That being said, I highly suggest not just grinding Monster Hunter for the sake of it, like I see some people doing pretty much everywhere, mostly on Twitter. There's plenty of games out there. If you put hundreds of hours into this game and are starting to feel burnt out, just take a break, play something else. In the original video, some people seemed to think I was comparing Rise's base experiences to entries like 3 Ultimate, but this wasn't the case. However, this perception is my fault, as I often referred to Gen 3 simply as 3 Ultimate when a lot of what I was talking about was valid for Tri or even Portable 3rd. That being said, while many core features like the Switch graphics, the overall ease of the game, hub scaling, and many other key features I talked about in the previous review haven't been remedied, I can say that Capcom has done much more than I ever could have expected in just 2 updates each about a month apart. There's more rewards for completing a lot of the endgame content, and that endgame content is fairly challenging, meaning there's a nice difficulty curve as you make your way through the base release and into the update. When Rise released originally, it could have been great, but failed at doing so because it was clearly missing so much content that probably would have been in the main release if not for COVID and even data leaks. But now we have said complete experience, receiving the rest of the content for free, and while it would have been nice to have it from the get-go, we have it now, and looking at Rise as a full package, I can truly say it's a fantastic experience. It is a great game, and I can't recommend it enough. If you were considering getting into Monster Hunter Rise and were waiting to see a finished product, now is the time. And there's more supplementary content on the way to hold you over until the Ultimate Expansion gets announced, or until you start all over on the PC release. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I really enjoy Monster Hunter Rise, and I give it 4.5 low rank Kazoos out of 4.7. Hello everyone, welcome to the Patreon section. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you do, you get your name in the credits here probably, and you also get to be shouted out by me. There was an issue in the last video where I didn't put the credits, so high rank patrons are actually getting shouted out today as well, and you will all also be in the credits, so thank you so much for that. Let's get started, but before that, check it out. Say hello. Oh, your little Mabel. The new puppy, the new mascot of Super Rad's YouTube channel, little baby. Per Gunner Erickson, thank you so much for the G rank. I really appreciate it. It's amazing and super appreciated and fantastic and wonderful. Atomic Weapon, thank you so much for the G rank tier. I appreciate it. Alex Kang, thank you so much for the high rank tier. Sorry about last time. Feel bad about that. My bad. Karen Tall, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Carl the Crab, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Void Paradox, thank you so much for the G rank tier. I Am Kanan, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Maz, thank you so much for the G rank tier. I really appreciate it. Moal Kasemi, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Rob3, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Agatosh, thank you so much for the G rank tier. It's amazing. You're fantastic. Little Mabel here says thank you as well. We do a little gaming. We do a little pledging. Thank you so much for the G rank tier. King, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Ryan Marion, thank you so much for the G rank tier for a while now too. Let's go, Ryan. Cyberworm, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Appreciate it. Mogbit, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Amazing. Roman, thank you so much for the high rank tier. Sorry about last time. Sorry I forgot to put you in the credits. My bad. It won't happen again, hopefully. Kathleen Meja, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Crunchy Cowru, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Jonathan, thank you so much for the G rank tier. So many G rank tiers, guys. You're crazy. Strange Lee, thank you so much for everything, including the G rank tier. Ben VB, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Oh, baby. Lude Hifumi, thank you so much for the G rank tier. I appreciate it. Troy Jennings, a personal friend of mine, thank you so much for the high rank tier. Sorry about the credits thing. Won't happen again. Probably. Rosa Leo, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Justin, thank you for the G rank tier. Mr. Janky, finally, Mr. Janky, thank you so much for the G rank tier. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, Mabel says thank you as well. She thank you. And I will see you in the next video.